Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey Norton, and also leader of the People's National Congress Reform. We are in the middle of local government campaigning. The heat is on. Give us an overview of what is happening with the local government campaign on a national level.
Well, first of all, we are organized, like I said, first of all, to ensure we maintain our strongholds. We are well organized in those areas. We are organized in virtually every NDC, though not all. And those campaigns are going okay. They are going fine. We're in touch with them. We have given guidance on how we campaign, etc. And we believe that this local government election will be won on the ground. And so a lot of the focus will be on groundwork. Your quality of candidates also matter. We have focused on that. And so we are optimistic that we will maintain our strongholds. And in some areas, we are going to make some advances on the PPP's base. I'm one who don't believe the PPP is as strong as they claim. I am aware that they are not participating in many constituencies, but in the nature of Barry Jacques Deo and his style, he will go on as if they are participating everywhere when that is not true. But we are focused on winning those areas that we win. There are many groups that are participating. We support many of them. We support them, though they are not APNU groups. We believe, and we have said this from the inception of local government in 1994. People forget that in 1994, while the party fought in the main towns, etc., we supported a lot of groups in other areas. And so we still believe that there is space for citizens groups to emerge and to do the work. Local government is about ordinary people and people generally. And we have over the years argued that we should depoliticize local government so that the people could become involved and make the decisions. Of course, we haven't acted totally to do that, because if you lose citizens group against the PPP in Georgetown or in Linden, it will be a totally different ball game. So while our overall objective is to have the depoliticization of the local government structure and get people to involve more as ordinary citizens than political operatives, that is our long-term objective. But as we pursue that, we are cognizant of the nature, the beast we are dealing with. And so we will go it in phases.
Let's pick up on that note of this pretense of the PPP that they are so strong. Let's look at it historically. This is a party that didn't even like local government elections and didn't have it for a long time.
I don't think they even like it now. I think they believe they have the resources to bribe their way through. I think they believe they have the 10 days workers that they could intimidate. I believe they think they have the police, well, they know they have the police under control, so they will use the police to harass people, as we have seen in Linden, we have seen in Georgetown. But they have no interest in local government. Their interest is in domination and control. If they had interest in local government, in their approach to the single window, they would have created space for the local government institutions. But they failed to do that. So the interest is not in local government. The interest is in domination and control. And if you follow the second vice president, Jacques Deo, first he was saying, oh, we'll beat the APNU in all these areas. We're going to take Linden. We're going to take Georgetown. Now suddenly say he isn't commenting. He's waiting on the outcome. The PPP is not as strong as people perceive. They believe that money alone can do it. We know that organization and contact with the people and pursuing the people interests is your best option. We are doing that. And we're not sidetracked by Barry Jacques Deo and all his utterance. For instance, I mean, the man is such a clown. When this bill about the intelligence unit came out, I said that we believe there's need for a unit, but we have concerns with the bill. He runs off to say that I am not knowledgeable that they had a intelligence body in place. Well, they had one under the APNU, and no country runs without an intelligence body. What we are objecting to is one in which there is total domination and control by the PPP and the president. And more so, this is dangerous at a time when the police commissioner is a pawn of the PPP and taking whatever instructions. Because in this local government elections, a lot of reports have been made about forgeries and fraud. And if this police was operating in the interest of enforcing law and order, there would have been charges brought against those persons. But the police isn't interested in that. And so let us not be carried away by the utterances of Barrett. What in essence is the reality, they don't believe in local government. And even in the management of the country, they do everything to override local government. They use the REO against elected councils. They use the overseer against elected councils. And even some of the PPP councils are objecting because of the high-handedness of Dharamlal and Barra Jack Deo. So we need to focus and recognize that they don't like local government. We will do what we have to do. But even as we do what we are doing, we will continue to challenge the existing situation. We filed some legal action already, and we will proceed to do some more so that we keep the PPP under check and in focus for the fraud and corruption that they're involved in. They are mounting this Commission of Inquiry report. But what they're not saying is one of the most fundamental points made by the COI is that this election commission cannot deliver free and fair election because it is politicized. And Claudette Singh has lost all semblance of decency. I mean, look at this case with Bel Air Woodland and Wakenham that Vincent Alexander wrote about. Here is a case of clear forgery. You claim you can't do anything about it. But then the PPP minister goes to Wakenham, coercing people to come off of the APNU list. You had already issued the documents to accept the list, but then you reverse them to satisfy the wishes of the PPP. So it is obvious that Claudette Singh has compromised herself. She has to do everything the PPP asked her to do. And the only thing she isn't doing is the decent thing and resign. But we are in a position where the Elections Commission is in no position to deliver credible elections. And the only reason we are involved is because we know they have no moral compass. We know they are not decent. And any space that is left open, they will take it and use it against the people of Guyana. And therefore, we are on two parallel tracks. One to make them accountable at the legal and other levels, and one to participate to fill any vacuum that will emerge or has emerged.
Mr. Norton, on the same note of the pomposity of the PPP, here is Mr. Jagdew talking about them having, backup candidates and excessive candidates, but they're not even contesting in all constituencies in Georgetown, for instance. I mean, like, what is happening here?
You look, Barra Jagdew is a pathological liar. You have to give Barra Jagdew credit for looking at facts and just lie and seek to come over as some serious person who has facts at his disposal. His main quality has been the ability to lie in a barefaced way. And so him going on about him contesting all over, etc., is in keeping with his character trait. He is a pathological liar. He is someone who will watch reality and seek to change it. If the Vice News documentary in which he stuttered when he was asked about Sue, he is prepared to, in the light of all the evidence of alleged fraud and corruption, operate as if nothing has happened, then you understand the nature of the man. Barry Jackdo is a weak person. And I tell you why he's weak. He's weak because he doesn't debate issues. He lacks the intellectual capacity to debate issues. And invariably, because he lies so much, in a debate, he will be proven to be a liar. And so that is one weakness. The second weakness is he can only operate with power. He is not the kind of person who can operate if he's not all powerful. And you see that in the PPP. He has virtually killed every other opinion in the PPP. The only thing that matters is Barry Jackdo. If you look at his press conferences, it's like his ministers don't have portfolio. Where we would bring somebody to talk on local government that is responsible for local government and somebody to talk on oil and gas, every portfolio in this country is controlled by Barry Jackdo. And he talks as if he is the omnipotent when it comes to ideas about these things. And the truth of the matter is, this is a man that has failed. He has not one project that he can point to in which he was successful. He messed up Skeldon sugar factory. He messed up fiber optic cable. He messed up Enmore plant. Even the roads that he would have built, they don't last any time. So he is really a waster of Guyanese money. The Suez Dyke Linden Highway was built in 1968. For the longest while, we have been trying to get it rehabilitated, but he wouldn't. And then he argues that there is no discrimination. This is the kind of bare-faced chap that we are dealing with. And so I am not worried. We will continue to do our work. We're on the ground. Barry Jackdo knows full well that in his constituencies, people are rejecting them. And that is why he is running into the Afro-Guyanese community. That is why he is coming over or trying to portray that he will win Linden, Georgetown, and New Amsterdam. The worry here is that it might be preparing the conditions to rig. So when the rigging occurs, they're in trouble. But I know of cases in Georgetown where they are now having some of them, the candidates, asking people to go out there to see who they can pay to get support from, because as they go around Georgetown, they are being rejected. We expect that they will be beaten in all of the key strongholds. We will increase in areas of PPP stronghold. And I think by the end of these elections, you will see, it will be obvious that the PPP is not as strong as they try to suggest.
There's another aspect of this very conversation that a lot of folks on social media have been pointing out, that as you talk about them bribing people and all of that, it seems to be you can rent a counselor now, because one of the things that people point to is a lot of the people on their list seem to come from elsewhere. Trisha Richards, Chase Green, Malcolm came from someplace else. This fella, Mr. D. Ramos, I think it is, came from someplace else. Where are these new people?
Well,
that they are attracting really new people.
Well, first of all, they cannot attract credible people. They will attract people who going after money. And many of them tell you, look, we got to live. We can make some money. And so they will go after them. But that doesn't make them committed to the task and make them go out there and work. What we have are people who are committed to our people, committed to the task, and they are out there working. Money will attract people, but it can't make them produce. Now, the PPP in this local government should recognize that a lot of the persons who they have are not influential persons. While we believe these persons have a right to go to which political party they want to, and we have no problem with them, While we believe the PPP has the right to recruit whoever they want, we've seen in Linden they have recruited deportees. We have seen in Linden they have recruited men who they themselves issued bulletin for as wanted men. A lot of the people they engage are people who need the protection from the law. And so those persons go to them solely based on the fact that they are not likely to get charged for crimes they commit once they're in the PPP. And so we have to understand in that process what Dr. Jagan would have said to Barra Jagdo is be careful, you're mobilizing the lumpen proletariat, and there are dangers in mobilizing the lumpen proletariat. The lumpen elements that are in the PPP are just that, lumpen elements. We do not believe that they can influence the outcome of the elections. And so, again, we are not worried. We'll do our work. Our candidates are credible. The PPP could bribe whoever they want. It doesn't allow them the opportunity to get their votes.
Yeah. You know, the question has to be asked, why is it, and I know you've studied political science, you've taught the subject matter, you know, the PPP can only seem to attract a certain kind of candidate. That aside, the son of the one of the founders of the PPP, Dr. Joey Jagan Jr., makes a point in this morning's newspapers that if you want Georgetown to really take off, the first thing you got to do is dismantle the whole Ministry of Local Government, you know, under the stewardship of Dharmlal. I mean, Joe is a fairly bright guy, but says that they're part of the problem. You know, they're part of the problem.
Well, they're part of the problem. I've already made the point that they don't believe in local governments. And secondly, because they're a party based on domination and control, they cannot create space for local entities to operate. And then you put a nut like Dharamlal. When you put a nut like Dharamlal, you're virtually saying to local government, you must fail. But there's a characteristic of the PPP we must note. They seem not to have confidence in anybody they put in a ministry. Everything goes back to the president and the vice president. This diplomacy unit that they're talking about, foreign diplomacy unit. Now, the first thing is, while we believe people should be employed, it's a manifestation that the Minister of Foreign Affairs would have failed. The very things that they identify for this unit to do is what the Minister of Foreign Affairs should be doing. And to the extent that they have now to go and put a unit to do it, it becomes obvious that they don't even have confidence in the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And so they are now trying to recruit people who can help. But then it also points to another dilemma. Why didn't you put them in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where the architecture is there to do that kind of diplomatic work? You put it in the office of the president. And so the office of the president is becoming the center of everything. Man and mission is like taking over social protection ministry. Now you have the diplomacy unit taking over the Ministry of Foreign Affairs function, and it continues. And even when you look at the president's outreach, you're not seeing the technical people from the ministry being involved so that you can say, well, the ministry is involved. What you're seeing is directives being given. And when you go to people after that, they don't succeed because they still have to end up at the very incompetent minister and whatever ministry he's running. So the PPP is running around in circles, and their incompetence is obvious. Their divisiveness is obvious. You only have to watch Labor Day. If you believe in one Guyana, if you believe we should be united, why are you inviting some trade unionists to breakfast and you're not inviting some? And while you're trying to disrupt the route that the trade union apply for and trying to direct them in another route, and why is it that you're encouraging FITOG to go in its own direction and the TUC in their own direction? And that is why everybody is saying One Guyana is just a slogan. apart from the fact that it is not original, the PNC ran in 2006 as PNCR One Guyana, where we brought into focus One Guyana. Now we are talking about a people-centered development and identifying the elements of it. The president is now saying that they're people-centered. But if you are people-centered, then why is it you are not increasing the workers' wages in the way they should? We have long called for a minimum livable income, and the government can do this survey and pay that minimum livable income. In my budget presentation, we identified 20 plus measures to deal with poverty, and the government doesn't have a poverty strategy. We identify about 8 to 10 measures to deal with the with the high cost of living. We even pointed out that you cannot continue to focus agriculture in regions 2, 6, 2, 3, 5, 6, and parts of region 4, because you will not solve the problem. We said that there should be an agricultural program for every region, which is aimed at making those regions self-sufficient, which will mean that they are producing a lot of what they need to consume, and they will cut out the transportation costs, etc., by plane and boat to get things into the interior, etc. But the government is not serious about the development of people. They want to continue to dominate and control through agriculture. But if they take a holistic approach to agriculture and take the people interest in terms of bringing down the cost of living into consideration, then they will have a totally different approach. And the government seems not to understand that to the extent that you have oil and gas and ExxonMobil is here, there will be the demand for more of these products. And if you have the same capacity to produce that you had before Exxon, and you don't increase the capacity, almost immediately you will produce shortages. You will produce scarcity, and scarcity will result in an increase in price. And an increase in prices will affect the working class, and it will contribute to an increase in poverty. We have outlined a holistic approach which says, let us have sustainable agricultural development projects in all regions, meaning regions like Region 1 will now increase their production. Region 10, which the government stifles, we were doing the road to the Berbice River, which they virtually stopped. That would have allowed produce to come out from the Berbice River, service Region 10, and bring down the price. But they are comfortable with people driving from the quarantine, going to Linden to sell their products, rather than developing a program that will allow each region to become agriculturally sustainable and can contribute to the reduction in cost of living, etc. And this is the other thing. Barra Jagdeo doesn't talk about policies. He doesn't talk about programs to bring down cost of living. What he does is lift to his middle name abuse. That don't solve our problems.
Mr. Norton, you talked about the no confidence you have in the chairman of GCOM. I want to circle back to some of those issues. Have we been witnessing the rigging, as it were, of not only the local government elections 2023, but that election, general and regional, to come in 2025? We've seen the missteps of GCOM. We have seen the gerrymandering of the boundaries. We've been seeing them trying to get their man and woman in certain key positions. We've seen the chairman of GCOM set up this post for the operations manager, and now appointed the same person to DCO. We're seeing a number of things. Are we heading down that road?
Well, I believe ultimately we will get a clean voters list and biometrics. We just have to continue to struggle. Look, let me tell you what the PPP is trying to do. The PPP is trying to force widespread protests. And then, in their normal style, they will arrange for one ethnic group to be beaten. And then they will blame it on the APNU. And then they hope that that will bring back the supporters they are losing. we have to take them on skillfully and don't afford them that opportunity. Because as you go into the communities and you follow Facebook, etc., you're seeing a lot of who previously were their support base are now dissatisfied with them and they are not going to support them. Not saying they will necessarily support us, but they're not going to support them. So the PPP is on a drive to get back those people. And the historical way they used to do that was when there were protests, they beat people. The man who used to organize it is now not there, but they got the new PPP bulldog, for the want of a better word, Kwame. And so they hope to do that. Now, we have got to avoid that. But we have to continue to bring pressure to bear to ensure that essentially we get what we want. We have begun the protests, the picketing of GCOM. We are aware that people are being motivated to take on the PPP. We see this as a first step in terms of preparation of the rigging machinery for the national elections, and we will have to challenge it all along the way. In our preparations, we are preparing to be able to scrutinize. It is easier to scrutinize what is happening at the local government level. It is not that easy at the national level. And so our position on the elections at the national level will have to be taken into consideration the extant situation at the time, because we do not see one GCOM delivering credibly elections. And even if you get a clean voters list and biometrics, you still need to have an independent GCOM. So there has to be action to ensure that there is an independent GCOM as well as a clean voters list and biometrics. And clearly, Claudette Singh cannot be the person. And she should do the decent thing and resign.
So, Mr. Norton, I'm certain you would have seen by now a piece of footage that is circulating with former president, now General Secretary and Vice President, actually advocating for a clean voters list, as you're advocating for, actually advocating for biometrics, as you're advocating for, among some other things. We have a complete turnabout now. Here is a look at that video. Here is a look at that video.
We need to make sure that the list is cleaned up so that people, the abuse that we had, where when you had sympathetic presiding officers to the opposition, allowing people who should not have voted to vote because they had extra ballots for people who had migrated and were or are dead in the polling stations, that if you have a new clean list, that will minimize that happening because they would not have the ballots in the polling station. Secondly, we need enhanced biometrics, because when some presiding officers said, like we had some cases in Victoria, this is Mr. X, just looking at the photo, and the polling agent from the party sits across the room or is in a hostile area, is afraid to object, they allowed a number of people to vote who should not have voted. But if you have biometrics, enhanced biometrics outside of just a photo ID, it could minimize that happening.
Mr. Norton, haven't seen that video. What is your response?
Again, I've already pointed out that Barra Jagdeo lacks a moral compass. He has no sense of decency. Here is a man who would say, when it suits him, we want a clean voters list and we want biometrics. We began the process of house to house to clean the voters list while we were in government. This same man went to court to stop it when he thought he had gotten Mercury and a number of international support to be able to do what they did in the last election and be installed in power. Now that he is installed in power, he's not prepared to do the very things that he would have said. But that is expected of Barra Jagdeo. I don't believe people in the PPP believe anything that he says. And so I would say it is a normal course for somebody like Barry Jagdeo. He said he was going to renegotiate the ExxonMobil contract. When he get government, he says he isn't. He was to put in place the Petroleum Commission in government. He isn't going to put that. You know, Barry Jagdeo is just, how do I put it? Someone who really and truly is bad news for Guyana. But unfortunately, he wields power in one of the main political party, and many of the people in that political party is afraid to even challenge him. So we will have to challenge him and continue to expose the fact that he is two-faced, if two is the limit. And so I don't think the Guyanese people expect anything better from Barry Jagdeo.
As we wrap up, Mr. Norton, these elections are imminent. We know you have your challenges with the system as you have outlined here. What do we tell the people to get them out to the poll? This is the reason why. What's on the ballot in this election?
A lot of things are on the ballot. First, we must see local government elections is not a good yardstick to judge popularity in Guyana, because the indigenous communities don't vote in these elections except at Lethem and Arnaputa, etc. There are many areas that are not going to be involved. But there are many municipalities and NDCs. And one of the things must be on the ballot is whether people want to be controlled by the PPP or they want genuine local democracy. If they want genuine local democracy, they must not vote for the PPP. First thing on the ballot. The second thing on the ballot is cost of living. In any NDC, in any municipality, the cost of living affects you. Why should you vote to support at the local level people who are oppressing you at the national level, who refuse to put in place measures to deal with cost of living, who refuse to put in place measures to deal with poverty? So that also has to be on it. And then discrimination. I cannot see why Londoners should vote for the PPP when they know 90% of the contracts go out to Linden, and when in Linden only to PPP people. So this whole question of discrimination is on the ballot. Unemployment is on the ballot. I say to people, take the 40 or 50,000 for the 10 days, but you can't live with 10 days work. Plus the government is using it to manipulate you. Go and vote and ensure they are not in charge of these municipalities and localities. The government has an obligation by law to give communities their subvention so that they can do the work in the communities. The government refuses to give some, and when they give, they want to direct. When you vote in these local government elections and you vote against the PPP, you are voting for the people in those NDCs to get their subvention, get their assistance, and decide what is best for the people and do it. So I think the local government election is an important element, but it has to be linked to the issues at the national level, because we are a unitary state and a lot of the resources to be allocated for local government are allocated by central government, and central government should be sent the signal that we, the people on the ground, want to govern ourselves and not be dictated by Darren Malal, who has no vision for local government, who is visionless generally. So there are a lot of issues that will have to be addressed in local government and taken into consideration. Do you want a local government commission that is dominating, removing from you the right to employ your people? Do you want a local government commission that is basically dominating and controlling municipalities rather than allowing their freedoms? On this ballot is democracy and the rule of law. The government does not live by the rule of law. The government is not a democratic government. It's an authoritarian government. Some of the bills they're bringing to Parliament showing you clearly how authoritarian they are. And so the question of good governance is on the ballot as well.
Mr. Norton, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. I know you have a very busy schedule, and we want to thank you as well for bringing clarity to these many issues. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.